Okay, good day everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the types of marketing research. Now in the past we've looked at the various sources of marketing research and we've identified these in terms of primary and secondary. Today we're going to look at specific types of marketing research. So specific types of studies. Make sure you get out your notes, you follow the STORM philosophy for note taking, and sit back and enjoy. So here's what we're going to look at today. We're first going to identify what type do you use. Alright, and then we're going to look at the types of marketing research, and we break this into both consumer and competitive research. Now, one thing to note, there is an abundant amount of information to gather from each slide, and I'm not going to be able to go through and explain each of them. Otherwise, this video would all of a sudden extend to maybe 30 or 40 minutes. So what I'm going to do is basically talk about each type and what kind of information it gathers. You are required to identify how it helps marketers and what we use it for. Okay, so there's many different types of marketing research methods, or otherwise what we call studies, to use. All of these gather information regarding consumers and competition, and therefore what type or which study to use really depends on what type of information you wish to gather. We use all of these studies for decision making regarding consumer preferences in the competitive environment. And so based on your objectives of the research, this will determine which study to complete. So as mentioned, there are many different types of marketing research or types of marketing research studies. They either fall into the consumer research category or the competitive research category. Now within each of these studies, it might be that you gather information through a focus group or a survey or so on and so forth, but the actual study addresses either consumers or competition. So consumer research, we focus on, or we use, I should say, awareness, attitude, and usage studies, consumer segmentation analysis, market dimension analysis, product research, media research, consumer tracking devices, motivation research, consumer satisfaction studies, and advertising research. Again, all these pertain to consumers and their reactions and responses to the marketing efforts. Competitive research focuses on the competitive environment, so competitive market analysis, competitive intelligence, pricing research, and conjoint trade-off analysis. So let's first start with consumer research. This consists of all the marketing efforts used to determine people's buying behavior. So how consumers react and respond to marketing efforts. So the first study is the awareness, attitude, and usage studies. Now this is where we want to gather information about consumers' awareness of products or their attitudes towards and the usage of those products. It'll fall within unaided awareness or aided awareness categories. Unaided awareness is what we call top-of-mind awareness, that without needing any kind of prompt, the consumer can respond to questions based on feelings and prior knowledge regarding a product or a service. This is automatic and instinctive. Aided awareness, they are identifying brands from a list. They have prompts and therefore they are responding to those prompts. Both unaided and aided awareness are what we call total awareness, and this is what we are looking at in awareness, attitude, and usage studies. Now, again, in your notes, I would like you to identify what they research, how it helps marketers, and what they use them for. So I've told you exactly what kind of information these studies gather. Now it's up to you to identify how it helps marketers and what they use it for. The next study is consumer segmentation analysis. This is all about identifying consumer characteristics, so demographic, geographic, psychographic characteristics, or a combination of these. Now again, you can do surveys or focus groups or any kind of way to gather this research, but again, it's all about consumer characteristics. How it helps, what it's used for, again, this is up to you. Next is the market dimension analysis. Now this is identifying the main issues concerning a product that consumers might have. So a particular consumer segment, what are the main issues surrounding the product that they use or the services that they use? These main issues are what marketers really want to find out. Product research gathers information about each detail of the product or service. And what they try and do is identify and analyze the product's impact on the market, so on consumers. Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? This is the information that marketers are trying to gather. Media research is all about identifying the communication methods of advertising. So which media consumers use frequently? Where do they look for information? Where do they watch advertisements or shows and all those other ways that marketers can advertise products? And media, we refer to television and newspapers, radio stations, internet sites, all these different methods of communication. Consumer tracking devices are what marketers place on shoppers and follows them around a, let's say, shopping mall. So these tracking devices are digital. They identify when consumers shop, where they shop, what they buy, and their behavior while shopping. This can give marketers very important information regarding their paths that they take through a mall or a store. Gives them information about their behavior while shopping, when they're really excited, when they're not, what they buy, what stores they go to. So all this information can be used for marketers to cater the products more specifically to a certain consumer segment. Have you ever walked into a store and they've asked you to complete a customer feedback card, or maybe you've gone to a store, you've provided a phone number, and days later they follow up with you by phoning you and asking you how your experience was? All of these are consumer satisfaction studies. So what marketers are trying to do is gauge customer satisfaction through feedback cards, follow-up interviews, websites, and suggestion boxes. This is an ongoing study. This is a longitudinal study in which marketers are trying to find out exactly how consumers are responding to their experiences in the store over a longer period of time. Advertising research is what marketers do when they are going to launch a special ad or an ad campaign. And so what they do is they conduct focus groups, they gauge respondents' reactions to the advertisement, they ask them questions about how they feel emotionally, how they respond to the advertisement, and all this information is gathered by marketers to improve the advertisement. Oftentimes, advertisements are special advertisements, and they are launched on one day. Day after recall, or DAR, are advertising research methods in which marketers will ask consumers if they recall an advertisement from the previous day about a certain product, and they try and gauge top of the mind awareness of the ad. So if consumers can respond to, oh yeah, I did see an ad on shampoo yesterday, and it was, I believe it was, yes, Head and Shoulders. That would tell the marketers that yes, the Head and Shoulders ad that was launched the previous day was very effective because the consumer could respond to it the next day without any prompts. The other marketing study category is competitive research, and this is where marketers determine what other products are competing with the company's products, and as well as the ways in which they are competing. Information is essential when marketers and companies have their products out in the marketplace so they can respond and react to competition. A competitive market analysis is where a marketer tries to identify all the products available in a particular market category. So, for example, all the different smartphones that are available. Simply identifying all these different products will give marketers the idea of who they are competing with. Competitive intelligence research would probably follow a competitive market analysis. And once you've identified all the competitors, marketers will create a file, a competitive intelligence file for each competitor. This is hard data. So web search, what information is brought up? Business and trade magazine articles, what are they talking about? Annual corporate reports, samples of public relations material, sales promotion and publicity, and as well as corporate profiles from Hoover's and Sidar. These are marketing research firms that gather information and statistics on certain industries. And all this is put together in a competitive intelligence file that can easily be accessed and referred to so that you are aware of your competitors. Think of it when you are coaching let's say, a professional basketball team. You want an intelligence file on every single other team in the NBA. You want to know exactly how they are playing, how they operate, who's their scorer, so on and so forth. This is no different from marketing products or services. Pricing research would probably be a part of the competitive intelligence file, but this is something different. And this study illustrates all the different companies that are in the market and what they are charging for their products. Therefore, you can respond and react in kind to price changes. And lastly is the conjoint trade-off analysis. And this is where marketers will take a look at all the different products in a certain market category that maybe a company's product is competing with. And what they'll do is a benefit analysis on each of the different products, a value analysis, right? They'll identify all the different positives and negatives associated with those products, so they can look at those products, compare it to their products, and see if their benefits far exceed the competitors and their negatives are far less. This will help marketers cater the products more specifically to consumers as well. So this brings us to the end of our video. Now, again, there was a much greater amount of information available to you for each of these different marketing studies. Again, I was just describing how or what information that marketers gather through each study, but how it helps marketers and what they use it for. This is very important, so make sure you have these in your notes. What marketing research study marketers use, depends on their objectives of the marketing research. And various studies cater themselves better to various different objectives. And so it's up to you now. What research methods would you use for each of the research types? Right? So would you use focus groups or surveys for awareness, attitude, and usage studies? So think about that. And again, under which scenario would you use each research type? When would you use a conjoint or a trade-off analysis? When would you use a pricing research? So all this depends on what information you're trying to gather. Okay, so make sure your notes are in order. Make sure you go back through this and you gather the information for not just what each marketing research study gathers, but also how it helps marketers and what they use the information for. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.